Welcome back to our final episode of the Fire Connect podcast series. Today we're going to focus on everything that you need to know about Seattle Fire Department's Recruit School. Remember to apply online if you're interested in a career with our department at seattlefirejobs.com by November 29th. I am pleased to be joined today by Captain Sean Williams, Lieutenant Jesse Sears, and probationary firefighter Caper Woodson. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, we're going to dive right in and start asking some questions and learn what we need to know about Recruit School. So to start off, we'll just go through each of you and have yourselves introduce yourselves and how long you've been with the department, your work history, and including your training division time, and then your current role. We'll start with you.
All right. My name is Sean Williams. I'm the captain of recruit training, officially called the recruit coordinator. And I've been in the department about 17 years. I spent 5 years as a firefighter at Engine 11, moved to Station 10 and was a firefighter and hazmat tech there for about 5 years. Promoted to lieutenant, went to Engine 31, came to the training division actually as a guest instructor for recruit class 111. And then once I promoted to captain, came back here. And I've been the recruit coordinator for a year and a half and currently in my 4th class as in that role.
I'm Lieutenant Jesse Sears. I'm currently the lieutenant of B Shift Ladder 9, and I just got done doing 2.5 years here at recruit training. I taught 5 classes. I was the lead instructor for 2. I've been with the department for about 8 years, and during that time I worked at Ladder 10 and Engine 39, and before this, I was a firefighter at other departments and came forward into this. So,
my name is Caper Woodson. I'm a probationary firefighter on Engine 40 on B Shift. 3 months into my career, so not much to really speak about. Just in their class. Before this, I owned my own business and I worked at Trader Joe's. So, big jump for me.
Okay, and going back to your career before joining the fire department, what drew you to this career path?
Something I always wanted to do since I was a kid, sort of something I had in the back of my mind, and just didn't really set my sights on fully. When I was a kid, I was in a house fire, so, you know, firefighters came to my house, pulled me out of the house. I saw smoke and fire, and it was really scary. But I remember vividly, like, seeing the firefighters and kind of going, "Oh, that's what these guys do. That's their job." And that's something that kind of always stuck with me. And then I went through a period in my life of just trying to figure things out, figure out what I wanted to do. I thought that I was going to go to college and have some kind of career based off of that academic side. And then I ended up dropping out and kind of not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life. And then, like I said, I was working at Trader Joe's a few years ago, had started my own business selling flowers wholesale. And one day my friend, who's actually in the department now, he came in and I remember I was stocking liquor at Trader Joe's, and he told me that he got an interview with Seattle Fire, and he told me that they were in a big hiring spree, and he's like, "Hey, like, you mentioned that you kind of wanted to be a firefighter before, like, did you ever think about doing it with Seattle?" And I remember that I just had this feeling in my chest kind of light up, like, hey, why not? Like, I kind of have my life together now. Why shouldn't I? And I went home and I just looked up EMT school and just started doing as much research as I could, and ended up finding a good EMT school at North Seattle College and signed up for Fire Prep, which is a program that Manny Romero, the fitness coordinator, is putting on here. I did 2 of those and just kind of went from there and just did anything I could to get knowledge and experience, so ended up here.
And what you described too of someone mentioning being a firefighter and then the unfortunate tragedy that you experienced when you were younger, but sometimes someone just mentioning, hey, you could be a firefighter, or hey, I can see myself in this role. that's all it takes for them to start the application process and then start this as their career. So very impressed that you were able to make that jump, and I'm happy I now know someone in the flower business in case I need that down the road. So thanks. Captain Williams, with you currently working as the captain of recruit training, and Lieutenant Sears, with your prior role as the head instructor for, I believe you said 2 classes, you're both going to have a ton of insight on recruit school. So what would you like people to know who are coming into recruit school? A broad question, but how would you kind of go into that?
For me, there's 3 main points that come to mind. And the first one is being physically prepared. And it's not just being able to do something challenging one time. It's being able to do that over and over and over and over all day long for 15 and a half weeks. So being physically prepared, also being mentally prepared. So this is a very challenging, very fast-paced program, and we have very high expectations. And because of that, people are going to fail. There's no one who goes through this program without failing something. And so that mental resilience of being able to get knocked down physically or proverbially, and then get back up, learn the lesson from whatever it was that you just did, and continue on. So being physically prepared, being mentally prepared, and then also having your family and home life prepared. The people who are the most successful in this program are the ones who are able to totally focus on this, so that when they go home in the evenings, they're able to study, take care of themselves physically, come back ready to go the next day. They have the same opportunity on the weekends, and so that may mean arranging alternate childcare, having meal delivery service, whatever it is to take tasks off of their plate so that they can be totally focused on the task at hand for 15 and a half weeks.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I mean, physical preparedness, mental preparedness is critical coming in, being able to take care of what you have going on the background. Recognizing that everybody coming to the drill school has got something in their life that's happening, but being able to know that you're making a commitment for 15 and a half weeks, and that doesn't just count the time that you're here on the drill court. It's study time, it's prep time, it's rehab time, it's moving forward. This program is a very quick, fast-paced program because there's limited time that we have actually on the drill court to teach skills that are necessary for you to move forward in your career. And with that being said, ultimately, just like Captain said, people fail. And that failure is actually critical learning moments. It's moments for you to learn about yourself under stress. It's about how you think when you're tired. It's about your ability to overcome and process the information for individuals to be able to move forward. We recognize that as instructors, and we hope that the mental fortitude of the individuals that are coming through can recognize the feedback that they're getting is critical for them to be able to be successful. With that being said, I think the other side of it too is having an ultimate goal in mind when you come forward into this, is knowing, in my opinion, you're working for one of the best fire departments in the country that has the most opportunity available, has incredible leadership and opportunities once you get out into operations, has staffing that is absolutely wonderful on the rigs, and you're working for a city that's very dynamic and adventurous, I would say, in a lot of ways. And I think having that understanding that in a lot of ways, I think being able to work for Seattle is like winning the lottery, and knowing that you need to get through these 15 and a half weeks to get to that point, and you're going to learn the skills necessary. So on day one, you're ready to ride that rig and be a critical member of a crew to be able to help the public.
And probationary firefighter Woodson, you just recently graduated from recruit school. So talk to us a bit about how you physically and mentally prepared, and if you had a support system in place.
Yeah, absolutely. To anybody that's considering doing this program, you got to ask yourself, like, what kind of person do I want to be as a recruit? Do you want to be the person that's constantly, asking, oh, hey, how do I do this? What's the, how do I get better prepared physically? Or do you want to be the person that has the answers, that people are coming to and asking you those questions? And I think you got to strive to be the person that has the answers. And by all means, ask questions and use your resources, but try to always strive to be the person that if somebody asks me a question, I'm going to know the answer, because then you're going to be that much more prepared. Before recruit school, I tried to identify my weaknesses. Like I said, I did fire prep. That was immensely helpful for me, just learning the skills, as well as working on my physical preparedness. So, just working on, pulling hose, laying it, throwing ladders, starting a chainsaw, all these things that you don't necessarily have access to at your house. You gotta find ways to practice that. So I would say to anybody that's looking to do it, look for programs like that. I definitely recommend fire prep. And then for the physical side of it, like, I would run stairs every day. I got a weighted vest and would, just do workouts with the vest on and try to simulate what it would be like to carry a lot of weight on my body. And then just building that strength is super important. You can't build strength in 3 months. Like, you can't just get this job and then think that you're gonna show up in a couple months and be prepared. You gotta start thinking long term. So like I said, that day that I decided to do this at Trader Joe's, I didn't wait around and say, oh, I'll start preparing in a few months. It was that day I went home, I started finding resources, I started figuring out how am I gonna set myself up to be the best that I can be. And then as far as the support system, I talked to my girlfriend, a bunch of times before recruit school, and just said, hey, this is gonna be really hard. It's going to be hard for both of us. This is going to be, if I make it through, like, it's going to be an accomplishment for both of us, because I know that you're going to help me and do anything that you can to help me get to this, to achieve this goal. And throughout recruit school, Stephanie was making my meals, going to the grocery store, just taking care of basically everything at the house so that I could just wake up, put on my uniform, and just go to work and not have to think about anything else. So I'm very fortunate to have had that.
Did you have anything to add about having a support system in place and how important that is for folks?
I think it's critical. I think that any stressors that you have in your life during this 15-and-a-half-week program is going to be amplified and on the drill court. This training and the mental side of it, I think the shift that needs to happen in people's heads is that you are changing who you are and making a commitment and a lifestyle change into this career path. And what I mean by that is that these 15-and-a-half weeks are giving you the basic skills that you need to be able to function on the rigs and for the public when the bell hits and you're on your 24-hour shift at the end of it. But with that being said, is that any stressors that you have that during this 15-and-a-half weeks are going to haunt you on the drill court, are going to take attention away, from your success. And it's critical to have people in your life or a system in place that will allow you to decrease that during this time period. You'll have plenty of time to re-engage into that once this program's done. But once you commit to this program, you're committing to the 15-and-a-half weeks, and then you're committing to the lifestyle of a firefighter, which is ultimately always a commitment to the public. Whether or not you're on duty or off duty, you're still representative of the program, the badge, and the city itself. So I think that's, yeah.
Yeah, I could add on to that. There is no pause during recruit school, so you got to consider that when you're going into it. Like, something I dealt with personally was having some minor injuries. I injured my shoulder and my bicep, and my girlfriend scheduled a physical therapy appointment for me, and I didn't have to think about it at all. And so I just came home one day and she was like, oh yeah, like you just go on Tuesday and it's at 6 o'clock. Okay, cool. And if I'd had to call up and figure it out and figure out when I was gonna go and all this stuff, when I'm getting home tired and sweaty and just wanting to take a shower and fall asleep, it just adds that next level of stress that I don't need when I need to study and all this other stuff. So those little things can be very critical to maintaining your focus, because there are days where my arm's hurting and I'm having to hoist the 35, and it's like, okay, here we go. And just not having to think about, when am I going to schedule my physical therapy appointment? That's huge. Yeah.
Well, thank you to your girlfriend for all of her
Absolutely.
support, because
Yeah.
it sounds like it was really critical. So let's talk a little bit about the physical side of recruit school. We hear often that folks need to be coming in, they need to be physically fit, they need to have built strength, but what can they actually expect? What is a day in the life like of recruit school on the physical side?
So the vast majority of the day, recruits are going to be wearing full turnout gear and an SCBA. And so collectively, in a helmet. And so collectively, that weighs about 45 or 50 pounds. So that's your starting weight. And then on top of that, you're going to be carrying hose bundles, hand tools, ladders, saws, any other tools that we use on the fire ground, and carrying them to someplace and then starting to work. And so it is consistent exercise of moving heavy objects that are not ergonomic. So the drilling really starts in earnest at 8 o'clock in the morning and goes till around noon. There's lunch, and then we drill for 4 to 5 more hours in the afternoon. On either ends of that, there's setup, there's breakdown, there's cleanup. We're still picking all those things up. And you're doing all that while you're being observed and evaluated. And so part of the physicality and being physically prepared is being able to continue to think if something goes wrong, not being so physically taxed that you can't think, because you need to be able to be physically prepared, complete the tasks, but if something goes wrong, be able to think about what the solution is. So that is 4 days a week for the entirety of drill school, is 10 hours of manipulative training.
Yeah, I think just like the captain said, so I weigh about 220 pounds. When I put all my gear on and carry my tool, I'm about 310 pounds, right? And so that's a lot of weight that you're moving around and doing it, and that's your base level self-protection PPE weight. It's being able to work with that weight on your body and on your joints and everything else, and then add other movements along with that, whether or not it's carrying a ladder or a hose bundle and those type of things that's in one side of your body. I think prep for that is building up your cardiovascular so you can keep your heart rate down when you're getting tired. It's being able to work and have a mental fortitude to know that when you get tired, right, you can work past that level of tiredness and be able to concentrate and function within that thing. More than anything, it's about getting calories into your brain so you can actually concentrate, right, and hydrate. But this job is a very physical job. I would say more than anything that we're industrial athletes versus some sort of other profession. We're constantly climbing stairs. We're constantly carrying equipment. We're constantly moving odd objects like humans around, or other heavy stuff. And then on top of that, we're problem solving while our bodies are tired. And I think being able to know that, we're not ever gonna take you over the point of injury or a safety issue. We will stop you before any of those signs happen. I think the other side of it too with drill school is that I always talk with the recruits about not looking at the whole 15 and a half weeks, is being able to take small little chunks out of that 15 and a half weeks to be able to concentrate on. When I was in drill school, I would look at morning until afternoon, and then I would reset at lunch, and I would then go from lunch till cleanup, right? And I would do that each day just to try to take the small little chunks out of it in those breaks.
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah. And I think having that focus allows you to know that time's coming, right? And it will end, and it will get you to that point. But during those chunks of time, you're working hard for about 45, 50 minutes of learning skills, doing sets and reps of whatever skill set that you're learning, and then you're getting a 10, 15 minute break where you get water and you can get food and take care of yourself and take the gear off and put it back on. But I think ultimately this is also hardening your body to be able to do the work that we do on a daily basis in operations. And it's getting used to wearing the gear. It's getting used to being hot inside the gear. It's getting used to being able to work in those environments, because that's what you're going to be doing for the next 20 years of your life once you get this job.
One other thing I wanted to add too is you're also not carrying these things in a straight line walking. You're crawling or putting a ladder up and then going up a ladder, wearing all that, carrying hand tools, going through a window head first, searching a room, because we smoke up the props sometimes, other times we don't, and we can't, everyone has to stay low, because in an actual fire we're low because visibility is poor, it's hot. And so being able to lift and carry heavy things is great, but you have to be able to lift and carry things in awkward positions that you don't normally do at the gym. So it's dragging somebody while you're staying low, because we need to keep them below the neutral plane of the smoke. And so it is doing all these arduous tasks, but not doing them like you do at the gym, where you stand up and you're doing a squat that's perfect and you can see everything. You're gonna do heavy things, but you're gonna do it in kind of awkward positions and down low. So building in training as well that is not just linear in one direction, but is more dynamic, I think is very important.
So I think mobility in particular has a big part of it. I think strength has a big part of it, especially being able to know how to use your body and drive through the hips and be able to use your larger muscles to engage your smaller muscles is extremely important. Being able to squat, get down on your knees, move in directions that are side to side and forward and backwards with weight on your body is all critical for you to prevent injury and also to be successful.
Yeah, I think mobility is super important. That's something that's stressed a lot in fire prep. Like, you could be the strongest guy in the world or girl in the world, and if you can't bend your knee in a certain way to clamp slide your hose, then it doesn't matter, because you're going to injure yourself. And that's another big component of the physical side, is that lots of people, like in my class, we lost a lot of people to injuries. So, again, it's not enough to just have the cardio piece or the strength piece. Pay attention to how you're treating your body every day, what you're eating, how you're moving it, how you're bending it, because if you injure yourself from doing something incorrectly, there's no time to catch up. I know we had a few people that got, like myself, I didn't have any serious injuries, but sometimes you're able to catch up. But if you get a serious injury, it's, you sprain something, it's so hard to adjust to that and catch up with the class that you need to prepare beforehand for that type of scenario.
And so many who join the fire department don't have any experience with the fire service beforehand. So talk to us a little bit about the prep programs the department offers, and also if you've seen recruits that have taken part in those prep programs versus those who don't, what does the success look like between the different groups?
You spent more time with the prep programs than I have.
So I taught the prep program for about 10 classes before I became an instructor. And I taught the latter side of it. I think it's critical. I think the success rate is astronomical of the people that do the prep programs and actually engage in the time and commitment that comes forward. What it's doing is allowing you to get sets and reps and with the equipment and build a terminology and an understanding and a comfort level where you're coming into the program and being able to communicate and understand what's being communicated to you in a more efficient way because you've had experience around these pieces of equipment and have done a certain amount of the drills or not necessarily drills, but skill sets that are doing it. Ultimately, there is hundreds of little skill sets that you have to learn during drill school. And each one of those, the only way that it becomes masterful in your hands and with your body is through sets and reps. And the more that you get, the better that you're going to be. But ultimately what I see is the people that go through that program have a better composition of the way that they move on the drill court, the way that they function with the equipment. And it gives you such a higher level of being able to come into the program and be successful versus playing catch up where you're having to do all of the mental side and the physical side starting on if you just come in on day one.
And what about power tools and ladders and things like that that's available to you in this program?
That's exactly it, is that a lot of people don't have the experience of throwing ladders. They weren't painters or didn't work construction and that's absolutely fine. I mean, these are all skill sets that we can teach and do, but picking up a ladder on day one of drill school and moving it for your first time is not setting you up for success. Is knowing how that feels on your shoulder, knowing how that balance point works, knowing how the ladder functions as you're starting to walk and the forces that it's giving on your body. Same thing with hoses on your shoulder or starting a chainsaw. There's techniques that go into each one of those, and that's what that program is built for, is to get you sets and reps, build the techniques, build the muscle memory, and be able to allow you to have the terminology and communication necessary to go into programs. So the way I look at it is just, it's a big cheat, basically, that allows you to be successful. And I can tell you there is a drastic difference of the recruits, especially in the first 5 to 6 weeks, of the ones that have done recruit prep and the ones that have not done recruit prep. And the success rate is astronomically more of the ones that have.
Yeah, and I would say, if I just jump in on that, I totally agree with all that it takes, especially in like Lieutenant Sears said, especially in the opening weeks when the learning curve throughout recruit training is very steep, but it is especially steep in the first few weeks. And if an individual has the opportunity to go to any of these pre-employment programs, it certainly offloads some of that cognitive load that we're going to present in the first few weeks, because you have written tests from your first Monday in recruit training. Your first formal evaluations start the second Friday, so 8 days into recruit training, you're getting formally evaluated. So if you have the opportunity to go to those, that's great. However, our program is designed so that you can have never touched a stick of hose or a ladder or a chainsaw, and we will teach you how to do all those things. Whether if you are coming from out of state, you just can't for whatever reason. And like Lieutenant Sears said, it is a very steep learning curve in the folks who have those opportunities to go to the pre-employment things. I would say do come in with a higher degree of proficiency, but the instructors will spend the time with every person to teach them those skills if they didn't have an opportunity. So, it was a very different drill school 17 years ago when I came in, but I had only thrown a handful of ladders. The pre-employment program was very different. And we had folks in your class who weren't able to go. And so it's a steep learning curve, but it is possible. And the program really is designed, because we haven't always had this robust pre-employment thing, so the program really is designed to pick people up with no experience and get them to successfully complete the program.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I also want to clarify for anybody watching this that are listening to this that doesn't understand the different programs we're talking about. There's a recruit prep program that happens a month before drill school for people that are in that class. And then the class that I did was called fire prep. I did 2 of those. And that is for, members of the public to come and get their hands on equipment. And that goes for about 2.5 months. And that's something you can just sign up for. Like, anybody can sign up for it. They prioritize people that have offers from the department, but then there's a second round where they let basically anybody come and be a part of that. And there is a physical test that you'd have to pass to do that, but it's open to anybody. And I cannot imagine if I showed up day 1 of drill school and hadn't done recruit prep or the 2 fire preps that I did, and I was touching a ladder for the first time. Like Lieutenant Sears said, it did feel like a cheat code in a way, like, because I'm 6'5", 220 pounds, and I had thrown ladders a bunch of times, moved hose a bunch of times, but when I'd thrown my 10th, 28-foot ladder, and Lieutenant Suarez was like, okay, throw another one. Even I was just like, okay, like, this is tough. So, having that experience was pivotal to my success, because if you know the basics, then it's just the little things that can get you. And that was the thing that I had to work on a lot in recruit school, is remembering the little things, like not forgetting my helmet, or not forgetting to verbalize a certain thing, But my basic skills squared away, so that goes a long way. So I would encourage anybody, find programs, find ways to practice. Even if you, like Captain said, if you live out of state, find videos from Seattle Fire, see how we do things, and then mime it in your room, or go to the gym and try to find a way to, set up that skill in a different way so that you can get the feel for what it's like, and you can work on your strength and mobility and all those different aspects of it.
So when we get to recruit school, our 15.5-week program, can you describe it week by week of what people can expect of how the program is developed and how they go through it?
I think, you mind if I take this real quick? I think having a bigger picture of the program is good. So the first 4 weeks is what we would consider basic skills. And then week 5 is you're going to have some evaluations, but then on top of that, it's a built-in rest week in a way. You're still going to be moving, you're still going to be active, but it's not going to be as engaged as the first 4 weeks, right? So it's kind of a reset. And then it ramps back up for weeks 6, 7, and 8, where it's the end of what classically we would call the grind, right? And then you have midterms, and the midterms are another evaluation. And then after midterms, it goes into MCOs, further classes like hazmat, EMS week, live fire, house fires, where we start putting everything together for the rest of the academy. And ultimately, when that's all done, there is some pivotal things that we do towards the end of the academy to prepare you to get you out to operations.
Yeah, so and just to clarify, Lieutenant Sears said MCOs, that's multi-company operations, where we're practicing as if we're actually going to a fire. But so, like Lieutenant Sears said, the first 4 weeks, we're teaching individual tasks of throwing ladders, stretching hose, putting on your protective gear, forcing doors open, taking roof ladders up, ground ladders, and installing them on a roof, practicing with saws. And each week there's written tests, and then each week there is a focus, and at the end on the Friday of each week, you then have a formal evaluation on those manipulative skills. So we call them requisite skills task evaluations, RSTEs. So there's an RSTE, or there's multiple RSTEs every Friday for the first 4 weeks, like Lieutenant Sears said. Week 5, in addition to what the lieutenant mentioned, we also go to North Bend to the Washington State Fire Training Academy, and we do what we call Burn to Learn. So it's fire dynamics, where we have recruits with instructors inside a building. We have fires going. We talk about fire dynamics and then show different aspects of that. And then exactly, the 6, 7, and 8, weeks 6, 7, and 8 are complex evolutions that we call them, where again, you're learning them during the week, and it's taking all the pieces you learned in weeks 1 through 4, and now you're putting them together into something you will actually do on the fire ground. And again, with RSTEs every Friday, and the whole process is very challenging, but those weeks, the learning is very steep because you're learning a new skill set or a variation of a skill set literally every single week, and have to demonstrate proficiency with it on Friday.
What's an example of an evolution?
So they can be as simple as we have one that's called the ladder combo. You have to throw 2 ladders, a 24-foot ladder. You have to take off of a rack that's mounted like it's coming off the side of an engine. You're wearing full turnouts, SCBA. You take a 24-foot ladder, have to take it, raise it correctly, put it into a floor 3 window, come back over, get a 28-foot ladder off a sawhorse, throw it for roof access in a different spot. And you have 1 minute and 45 seconds to accomplish that. So that's a very simple one. We also have engine evolutions. One's called pre-connect on grade, where you're sitting on a fire engine, dressed fully, you and a partner. You get off, stretch 1 3/4 hand line to a door, while your partner's looking at 3 sides of the building, putting the rest of your PPE on, getting your hand line charged, checked, ready to go, doing a buddy check, which is making sure you're both covered and ready to go inside, and then following a scripted route inside the building, applying water where you've been directed, starting to hydraulically ventilate to get smoke out of the building while your partner searches and making radio transmissions. So, and then there's ones that are longer and more complex than that. So, in weeks 1 through 4, we teach you in one of the weeks all the different ways to stretch hose from the engine to a door, from the engine upstairs to a door, from an engine downstairs to a door. The next week is from the door to the seat on 1 level, going up 2 levels, and then the evolutions combine all that into something that you would actually do on the fire ground.
When he says seat, it's from the door to where the fire is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So with such a busy training schedule, it's perfectly timed out throughout recruit school of the skills that members need to accomplish by the end to be able to pass. Where do you fit in time for meal breaks? Do you want to talk a bit about that, probationary firefighter Woodson?
Yeah, you're talking about meal breaks during the day?
Yes.
Yeah, so man, as far as getting all your calories, you have to find ways to eat while you're on the drill court. So, you are going to get a lunch break halfway through the day, but I know I had my pockets full of snacks throughout the entire day. So, sneaking in Uncrustables and little applesauce packets and fruit snacks and just anything you can do to get calories, because, your daily life you're gonna burn a few thousand calories just sitting. But when you're doing something as strenuous as drill school all day, every day, you're burning, 6,000, 7,000 calories, depending on, how big you are. And you have to replace those calories with something. So you can't just rely on lunch. You can't just rely on dinner. And the other thing I would say is eat breakfast. Like, I would get up at 4:45 every morning and I would eat breakfast and take a moment for myself to kind of mentally prepare for the day. And then when I would show up, I wouldn't be, standing at attention hungry. I'd already eaten. So that just helped me get through the day.
We see a lot of recruits that skip breakfast or do something like that, and then they start bonking, especially in that morning evolution. And one of the first questions I've always asked them is like, what'd you eat for breakfast? And their response is a granola bar or something like that. Or nothing. And that just doesn't cut it. I mean, like I said, with all the gear that you're wearing, all the weight that's on your body, and even just moving in that stuff, you're sweating, you're going through all that stuff. So you need to get calories in. On the drill court, absolutely do not mind people eating on the drill court as long as it's not taking time away from the drill sessions. And, that could be as simple as, you're standing in the back and somebody's explaining something and you're listening to something and you've got a granola bar that you're stuffing into your mouth, to during those 10 to 15 minute breaks that we give, getting water, get your bottle SCBA, get something in your system, and just keep going. It's critical. It's critical for you to keep your muscle mass up. It's critical for you to keep your body moving and doing that.
Most of my classmates lost weight during drill school. I actually gained weight, and that's because I was eating breakfast, I was eating Uncrustables on the drill court, I was eating a big lunch, and then I was eating dinner. It's super, super important. And the other piece is hydration. Water's not enough, so we would have drip drop and liquid IV packets out on the drill court and just throw those in your water bottle. Because, I would liken wearing full turnouts all day. It's like the kids from A Christmas Story, like wearing the big, 3 winter coats, and that's just all day, and you're just sweating and sweating and sweating, and, you got to replace your fluids somehow and your electrolytes.
And it's a big deal for us. We take care of that, make sure there's water always available at every single one of the stations, make sure that you're getting water breaks during each time after we get done with the drill, and we take care of that. I think it's absolutely critical for any smaller recruit that's coming in, or somebody that maybe doesn't have the bulk of a 220-pound, 6-foot person, right? It's critical that you keep your muscle mass on throughout the entire drill school. We see a lot of recruits that haven't done a good job of that, haven't kept their calories up, and you start getting into week 6, 7, and 8, and they start losing weight, losing muscle mass because they're not eating appropriately, and it affects them being able to be successful in those later weeks.
Yeah, so. And we'll have recruits who, when we're teaching a skill in weeks 2 and 3, they're able to do it fine. And then when we get to 6, 7, and 8, and now that same exact skill is just part of a longer evolution, they're physically not able to because of just that. Yeah. They've lost muscle mass in between, because they're just not putting in enough calories, and so they're losing mass, and now they've gotten to week 6, 7, and 8, and they're not able to complete it when they did it just fine a month earlier.
So it sounds like fueling your body is really critical to making it to the end.
Absolutely. And
your body and your brain.
That's also the big thing about the recruit prep. They spend a lot of time talking about diets. They spend a lot of time talking about fueling your body, calorie needs, all that stuff. So it's critical to be able to get that information and prep for that, moving forward.
Probationary firefighter Woodson, you talked a bit about your morning routine, making sure that you ate breakfast before getting to drill school, but what about the evenings and weekends? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so that would depend on what point in drill school I was at. Like they were saying, the first 4 weeks are basic skills, and those weeks are very challenging, but they're nowhere near as challenging as the weeks that follow. 6, 7, and 8 are no joke. And so, for the first 4 weeks, I'd get home, I'd, kind of go over my skill sheets, look at do some studying we have like weekly tests on Mondays, so I'd take a peek at that. Most of that I would do on the weekend, but, eat a big dinner and get some sleep. I mean, you got to get to bed. If you're getting up at 4:45, getting off at 6. I'm lucky because I lived close to the JTF. I lived like 10 minutes away. But I know some people in my class lived an hour to 2 hours away. So for them, it's, get home, eat, study a little bit, go to bed. Because, you can study on the weekends when you have a little bit more time. But if you don't get your sleep in and you don't get your calories in, the next day is just going to be horrible, and then that can kind of compound. So for me, it was just, it was that. And then also like stretching, foam rolling, doing the things that set you up to wake up feeling a little bit more refreshed than you might otherwise. Very important. So that was the first 4 weeks. 6, 7, and 8, it was like get home, eat, fall asleep. Like it was just, there was no time for anything else because I was just so tired because, you're doing these drills that are just, like Lieutenant Sears said, industrial athletics. You're pulling a hose, walking up 4 floors, laying the hose, doing the entire evolution. So you come out, you're panting, you're sweaty, take off your SCBA and you start loading hose. And it's just all day, every day. And then you go to the truck side and you're throwing ladders, you're doing, VES, climbing up a ladder, going in, doing a search. Like it's just all day. Your body's just getting beaten up and you're just working. So you gotta sleep. Get home, eat, sleep. That was what it was.
What was the toughest part of recruit school for you?
Man, it's hard to pick an exact moment. I think like my lowest moment was I double failed a drill. I actually VES, like I just said, double failed VES. And so when you double fail something, that means you're gonna have to retake it and you get 2 more tries in week 9. And if you don't pass one of those tries, you're fired. So, it's a huge amount of stress. And some people in my class had 3 or 4 of those drills that they had to retest. But it was just for something, like I said, the little things can get you. And I knew how to throw a ladder. I knew how to search a room. And the thing that got me ended up being like the way I was climbing the ladder. I wasn't climbing it in a safe manner. And, at first it was a feeling of kind of like rebelliousness in me, like, oh man, that little thing, really? And I remember we had a guest instructor that day, and he actually took the time to talk to me for like 10 or 15 minutes and just explain to me like, hey, you're gonna have a long career and I want you to be safe. Like, I don't want you to leave drill school with these bad habits of climbing a ladder in a way that might get you injured. And it would, I would hate it if I had to hear one day that I let you pass and then you fell off a ladder and hurt yourself. And so, now, and I ended up passing the drill, obviously, but now in operations, like whenever I climb a ladder, I'm thinking of where I'm putting my hands, and I'm actually using what I learned, and instead of just, skirting by and, oh, I did the drill, and, maybe I didn't climb the ladder properly, but who cares, I passed. So I'm actually really grateful for that now, and I'm grateful that he took the time to tell me that, because it just made me feel a little bit better, because it was a tough moment.
Very helpful and constructive feedback.
Could I add something to that? I think more than anything that's going on in drill school, and the reason that we're so, I guess, tough on those particular skills is because we're trying to build proper training habits or proper skill sets. We have done an incredible amount of work to get rid of training scars, meaning scars that have negative effects when you perform that way in operations. And ultimately, if you ever get into a point that you're tired, you're panicked, you're in a bad situation, you're going to go back to that core memory of how you did those skills, and it usually goes back to what you did in drill school. So that's why it's so important for everyone to learn these skills and perform them in the proper way with the proper safety margins. So when that moment comes, you'll perform in the right way. And I think that that's something to take to heart coming into drill school.
Captain Williams and Lieutenant Sears, from your perspective running the recruit training programs, what is the culture of recruit school like?
Our culture is very formal. The Seattle Fire Department is a paramilitary organization, and I think that's most evident in recruit training. There's a lot of yes sirs and yes ma'ams in recruit training, but that's necessary because we have a tremendous amount of learning that has to happen in 15 and a half weeks. And like I said, the program is designed to take someone essentially off the street who's never done this, and in 15 and a half weeks, they're riding in position 3 on an engine company. They're not in an observer role. They are a member of that 4-person company. And so as an example, in Probationary Firefighter Woodson's class, we sent 31 probationary firefighters out into the companies. 9 of them, so almost a full third of their class, on their very first shift in operations, were inside a working fire.
And I was one of them.
Several of them were on the nozzle, primary attack line, literally their first shift in the companies. And so when you leave here, you have to be ready to go. And so because of that, and because of the breadth of things that we respond to, we do not have time for pleasantries. And we're not going to be rude, we're not going to be disrespectful, but we are very direct. And we are, Lieutenant Sears, myself, all the other instructors, we are formal observers and evaluators. And so we're going to teach you how to do skills. We're going to give you practice, give you feedback, give you extra practice if you need it, and then we're going to evaluate it. And that whole time, we're going to be giving you very direct, succinct feedback. And a lot of people are not used to that. And it comes at you quick, and people need to be successful. People need to be able to hear that. And it is not going to be sugar-coated. Again, it's not going to be rude or disrespectful, but it's not going to be sugar-coated. And people need to be able to hear that and incorporate it the next time they do it. But that being said, the culture is also supportive, because truly we do have a seat for every person who comes into recruit training. So if 100% of the people who come into the class meet our standards of performance, then we would put literally every single person into the companies. And we want people to be successful as long as they're putting in the work. And so we will take the time to give people extra training. If they're struggling with a certain skill set, we'll get all the folks in the class together that are struggling with that at the end of the day, give them extra training on it, give them extra training opportunities. So it is very fast-paced, it is very formal, but it is also, our ultimate goal is to teach. Our ultimate goal is to have people leave this program and go work in operations and have long, productive careers where they're serving the public.
Firefighting's a very, especially when you're on a call, you're on a fire, is a very fast-paced, trust-based type of activity where, as a lieutenant, I need to be able to make a decision and give tasks to the individuals that are working for me, and I need to know that they can accomplish those tasks. And it's critical that those tasks happen because it has outcomes that can go one way or another, really, really bad or really, really good if they're accomplished appropriately or if they're not accomplished appropriately. So ultimately, that type of, I would say, leadership is and feedback is critical in drill school, where they need to know that it's not a personal explanation of your character or anything like that. What it is a direct feedback and an honest mirror that's coming back at you of where you stand and what you need to do to get better. We spend a lot of time talking about being objective, being not holding personal biases or those type of things. Ultimately, I don't care if you're 5 foot tall. I don't care if you're, a gigantic NFL athlete. Ultimately, I want somebody that can learn, adapt, and get better, and be able to perform the skills that's necessary. And that's what we're looking for. And so, with that being said, there is a ton of education that goes into each one of these skills. We are teaching you the why it's necessary, not just do this. It is, even like, let's just take a simple task like door force. You're going to learn a ton about the Halligan. You're going to learn about mechanical advantage. You're going to learn about doors. You're going to learn about why the procedures that we're teaching you in drill school is your 80% to 90% success on doors. And then eventually we'll teach you how to adapt those different skill sets to accomplish that maybe 10% of that oddity that you might see in the field. And we want you to be able to have those sets and reps and skills to be able to be successful in that moment when ultimately you get done with drill school and within 24 hours you can be on a rig responding to a fire with somebody's life right in front of you. And I think that it's necessary for you to know that yes, it is going to be direct, and yes, it's not going to be sugar-coated, but the truth of that moment and that reflection of that, what you might feel is failure, is a learning opportunity for you to grow and to get better and to listen to what's being said.
And we follow up, that direct feedback is followed up with, okay, here's what went wrong, here's how to fix it. So it's not just, again, we want people to learn, so if a recruit is making mistakes, we also give them the tools to be able to fix it, to change the hand position or their body positioning or whatever it is to allow them to have success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from what I've heard, the feedback portion of drill school has become a lot more honed, sort of. Like, I heard from previous classes that there were, moments where they felt like the feedback wasn't objective. But I think my experience was, and I was just talking to Lieutenant Sears about this before this, like, they were never mean to me. It was always, you did something that we saw was not the correct way, and we're just letting you know that so that the next time you can do it the correct way. Or we're letting you know that we're seeing a certain thing in you that maybe you don't want us to see. Like, maybe you're not helping out as much as you could be with resets or something like that. As far as the recruits side of things, the culture's just the most positive, motivating culture you could possibly imagine, just because that's what it takes to, get through something so massive. You show up in the morning at 0600 and you're in the parking lot and everybody's just, talking about what was on their form from last week, because you get a weekly, form telling you about your performance for the previous week. Talking about what they ate for dinner and just how they're feeling that morning. Sometimes you have a tough morning and you can, tell your fellow recruits about it and they can commiserate with you. And it's just, everybody's there to accomplish a common goal. And yeah, it's a pretty wonderful feeling once you get to the point where you have some friends in your class and you feel like you're a part of a team and you can rely on people, because this, like Lieutenant Sears was saying, you got to rely on the people around you in this job. Like, you got to trust them, and you'll reach a point in recruit school where no matter whose name they say you're assigned with on a drill, you're like, oh, okay, cool. I'm with him. We got this. So yeah, it's a great culture, and I think that varies from class to class. I will say like that was specific to my class, feeling like everybody has my back, and we got, we're in this together. So
I also think the culture of drill school is a mirror of the culture of the Seattle Fire Department. We're a very aggressive, very hardworking, very busy fire department. Comparatively to smaller towns or whatever it is, we run way more calls. We work extremely hard. We drill. We hone our craft, and it doesn't stop once you leave drill school here. And I think drill school is setting you up to be able to be successful within the culture of the department, which allows us to be successful for the tasks that we have as a department.
Yeah, I think something that's instilled in you in drill school is to have a sense of pride. At the end of the day, a lot of the times we'll be asked, like, who feels lucky to be here? And everybody's like, me, I'm lucky to be here. Or, if we loaded hose wrong, it'd get pulled off the engine at the beginning of the day, and you got to reload it. And, Lieutenant Ockman would tell us, have some pride in these engines. And, maybe that hose load is not the exact same way it's going to be in operations, but it's the lesson of when you do something at your station or on a call, do it the correct way and have some pride in that. And I think that was something that I, learned throughout drill school was, like I said earlier, be the person that people are coming to with questions. Be the person that sees something wrong. You go, no, that hose load looks bad. We're going to reload it, and just pull it off and just do it the right way. So that was something I kind of stepped into throughout drill school and really tried to take to heart.
Thank you for sharing that insight. And Captain Williams and Lieutenant Sears, you've seen so many recruits come through our process, make it out into operations, make it off probation, and become full-fledged firefighters with our department. What traits have you seen in recruits that have been the most successful in our recruit school?
I think the trait that comes to mind the most for me is resilience. So goes back to what I talked about earlier. So physical resilience, being able to stand up to the rigors of this job. I mean, you lift heavy things in awkward positions all day long, not just here, but when you go into the companies too. But also the mental resilience. And in recruit training, like we have talked about, you're going to get feedback. You're going to fail. Failure is often your best teacher, but it also still stings when it happens. But the people who are able to have those experiences and not get down on themselves, not have doom and gloom, but to be able to pick themselves up, work on improving that skill, and move forward are the ones who are able to be successful. And really, that is a skill that you need in operations too, because the bad days don't stop here. When you go out into the companies, you're going to have responses that don't turn out well or fires that don't go well. And you have to be able to be ready for the next response 5 minutes later. You might come back from the worst run of your career, and 5 minutes later, you're going again. And so that mental resilience is something that I think is absolutely critical, not just in recruit training, but also in the fire department as a whole. So that's the trait that comes to mind for me.
I would completely agree with that. I mean, there's a physical side to this that you've got to build up, right? But ultimately, I think it's all a mental game. It's being secure with yourself, being secure with your skill set, being open and willing to take feedback and make the critical changes necessary for you to be successful. Listen to what other people are saying to you to give you hints to be able to get better. And ultimately, we recognize that you have all walks of life that walk through this door to come into this drill school. And one person can throw a ladder one way, another person might need a different way, not necessarily completely different, but there's a different techniques or little body mechanics or help to be able to be successful within that. Then you take that out of that and you start getting tired, and your brain starts breaking down a little bit as far as, you being able to think clearly. Ultimately, the people that can calm themselves, not allow their heart rate to get jacked up, and to be able to think clearly in the moments are the ones that are going to be successful. I've seen recruits that we just got off a 15-minute break, and then we get started, and you can look at them and you can already tell their heart rate's at 120. They're nervous. They're allowing their anxiety to kind of take over, and just basically talking to them about, breathe. Like, you've got to calm yourself down before we get started. And that's where you are successful, is being able to be calm and collected in uncomfortable situations, in uncomfortable moments, to be able to think clearly through the problems that are in front of you, which are ultimately physical tasks.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. Day one of drill school, first day, I got my helmet. They had me hold it up in front of me and look at it and, say to myself, this is who I am now. And 5 minutes later, I left it on the ground because I was so whipped up in, oh my God, I'm here. It's the first day of drill school. Oh my gosh, I can't mess up. And then I left my helmet on the ground. And I remember Lieutenant Achman walking up to me and saying, Woodson, I just met you and I already don't like you. And I was like, dang, this is how I'm starting? Maybe I shouldn't be here. And, I went from that to, later on, just, never setting my helmet down anywhere, and just really honing in on just keeping track of everything at all times. And these little things that at first you have to focus so hard, oh, where are my gloves? They're right here. Where's my helmet? They just become second nature, and you're able to think about the task at hand. I think that's the thing for me that made me successful, was learning how to hone that part of myself and stay cool.
And we know not everyone that enters our recruit school, unfortunately, does not make it out to the other side. What are the main reasons that we see people not pass recruit school?
I would say, main reasons, we have a number of people in each class who typically are injured. And then you have people who are just physically not able to do some of the tasks. And I would lump all those into physicality, because if you are not physically prepared, you're more likely to be injured. If you're not physically prepared, you may not just be able to do some of the tasks. And if you're not physically prepared, you won't be able to think while you're doing these tasks. And we mimic the fire ground as much as we can. And so, for example, you're doing all these tasks, but when you've reached certain benchmarks, you have to radio command and you have to give them certain information. And these are all graded points. And so if you are so physically taxed that you're unable to think, it becomes harder for people to be able to remember the steps. And we're very detail oriented. We teach a lot of details because they are very important, and they are things that will literally keep you alive. And so we're very specific about a lot of details. So you have to be able to remember those. And so physicality and the things that it can lead to. But then I would also say the other one is people not being focused, people not being determined, having their eye on the prize, not making this their priority, or maybe they had external forces where they can't make it their total focus of the time. But if you're not making this your priority in life for 15 and a half weeks, it is very challenging to be successful.
I would agree with both those. I see the physicality side of it, the breakdown. Ultimately, that creates stress because you're not able to think in those moments. Then the other side of it too is outside stressors or something else that's going on, or on top of that, not being able to take feedback or listen, or not have a plan to be able to have your study time or those different types of things, which comes into the mental anxiety that starts to build up in recruits. And you can see them get into kind of a loop, and it's a day-to-day loop with that. And that's usually where they start walking down that path that is not a healthy path. And I think knowing that ultimately, always, we want everyone that walks through the door to be successful. We have standards in the Seattle Fire Department. We have standards in this career that is necessary for you to be able to prove that you can do this, for you to be successful. But I think it's being prepared mentally to be able to know how to decompress and know how to process information in a healthy way to allow you to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like to add on to that. I think all of those different pieces feed into the feeling of confidence.
Right.
And, something that I saw, especially at North Bend later on in drill school, was people getting flustered by the things that are being shouted at them or the task that they were being, told to do, and not being confident in, I was trained this way, I know what I'm doing, I'm a professional. I remember like a specific drill that we did where my partner was getting yelled at to hurry up on his search. Why is it taking so long? Come on, we gotta move. And then instead of finishing the search, he just kind of like came back to the front door and missed the victim. And so we finish our entire drill, we get outside, and then we get radio that we missed the victim on the inside of the building. And I remember I was really frustrated and just had a conversation with him like, hey man, you gotta tune out. You gotta learn like when they're saying something that's really important that you gotta listen to, and when it's just to try to whip you up and stress you out. And just what I started doing is I would just, they're trying to whip me up. Okay, I'm just gonna tune it out. Do what I need to do. And if they ask me, why'd you do it that way? I'm gonna have a reason. I did it this way because I was told that if I can see my feet, I'm allowed to duck walk. I don't need to be down on the ground. Okay, I'm glad you had a reason. And that a lot of the time, if I had an explanation, would be enough for, if it was like a guest instructor who didn't know exactly how we were taught something, for them to go, okay, like he had a reason, he knows what he's doing. So I think that confidence piece is super important. You might be super prepared and know exactly what you're doing, but if you're not willing to say, I'm a professional, I was taught to do it this way, now I own this skill, this is my skill, that can get you too. So that's really important.
All right, and our final question for today, what words of encouragement do you have for someone about to enter recruit school?
I think ultimately you have an opportunity to work for an absolutely wonderful organization. I've worked for 2 other organizations, and ultimately I've always wanted to work for Seattle. Main reason is because all of the people that I looked up to in this career worked here. And it's a very professional, very busy, very hardworking department. And ultimately this career is, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And you moving forward into this drill school, know that you have to keep your eyes on where you're going and what you're doing, and be hungry. Be really hungry to learn everything you can about the career of firefighting. And if you have that hunger and you have that drive, that this becomes your focus and your sole direction of what you want to do, you will be successful in this program. And so I would like to say, congratulations on the first step, and keep that focus and that drive moving through the program and then throughout the rest of your career. And because before you know it, you're going to be looking at the downward slope of your career, being over, and it happens really fast.
Yeah, and I would say this is an amazing job. Absolutely amazing. And it's certainly not every day you go to work when you're in operations, but there are those times in your career where you get to have an amazingly profound impact on the course of someone or people's lives. And so it is totally worth it. It's very challenging. You have to meet the standard for the reasons we talked about, but it is totally worth it. And I can honestly say in 17 years, I haven't had a day I haven't wanted to go to work. And I have some of my closest friends are people that I've worked with because I've done some pretty cool things with them on the job and off. So yes, keep your eye on the prize and go for it.
Yeah, I would say show up, stay hungry, stay humble. Just like if you see a program you want to do to get some experience, do it. If you don't know something, look it up. And then just always remember that this job, like Captain Williams would always say, it's not about us, it's about them, it's about the public, it's about, serving your community. And if you forget that, like, why are you here, So, and that's the thing that will continue to motivate you on those days when you are, not feeling 100%. It'll remind you why you're doing it and why it's important. And so show up, stay hungry, stay humble. That's what I would say.
Which is exactly why we have Here to Serve on all of our materials, because it really is the heart of the desire to help others, of being a firefighter EMT. Thank you all so much for joining us for today's podcast. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in. If a career in the fire service sounds interesting to you and you'd like to apply to the Seattle Fire Department, don't forget to visit seattlefirejobs.com by November 29th to submit your application.